Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Right? Okay. I think of my birthday as like the new year for myself, my personal new year. So I spend June trying to like process what I've learned or like what I've been through and then what I've learned from the experience and like what patterns I've repeated and then what I've actually applied. And how I do that is by writing a lot and talking to people, but mostly writing. I write to myself a lot. Um, as like a form of therapy, but it's also relationship building. That might sound a little weird, but as a relationship to myself, in June we had through 4 loved ones pass, and they were very sudden. And when I'd seen you in June, it was the day after the first one, and that one was like, oof, I'm starting early. Okay. That one was a shock to everyone, and I was having like this internal battle of do I stay home and like process that because we found out the night of the 6th. And then the next day I had 2 classes because I've been teaching, which is what I love. I love doing that. So it's a little bit different than when it's like when it was working a part-time job, like a retail job that I didn't really care for. I would definitely call in sick. I wouldn't go in. But for that, it was the kids, and it's always been very important for me to make sure they know that I care. And for me, that meant showing up. But I felt like I wasn't 100%, and then I still felt bad about that, not being 100%. And when I did start to process what last year was, I felt like it was like tearing down a bunch of belief systems and just tearing down a lot of things so that I had to rebuild. And for me, it was also asking for help in a number of ways, which again goes back to certain belief systems that I wouldn't say I wasn't aware of, but I didn't think it was still there, but it was still there. And so, yeah, like when I moved back, even before I moved back, just everything required me to ask for help more. And I understood, or like I now felt like I allowed myself to receive. It took time though to feel grateful and feel gratitude. And then once I did, I'll also say like it also required me personally it required me doing nothing for a bit, and then I was able to try and work back into a routine, and movement was something for me. So going to the gym with my brother and my uncle was good. I think that was kind of like the spark because I was having a hard time with the idea of doing it on my own. It was just I was still in that thing of not wanting to do anything. I guess I was going through a depressive period. And yeah, so it was very hard for me to feel like doing anything. But going to the gym with my brother and my uncle was a start. Personally, I don't like talking about things until I've figured it out to an extent at least. I don't like talking to too many people when I'm in the midst of it because I don't like too much opinion, and I need to understand what is being communicated to myself from myself. And I think our emotions do that if you really pay attention. And then of course, because I was in the headspace that I was in, I knew that I needed to like bounce things. I needed it not to only sit in my head, because I was also dealing with a bit of paranoia and anxiety and depression. And my because I'd seen a doctor, like my family doctor, about it, the anxiety and stuff. But I kind of already knew it was linked to everything that was going on, especially with the deaths and them being like unexpected. So there was a part of me that just kept thinking about other people just dying suddenly. And it was giving me a lot of anxiety. I have my moments where I'm like, okay, maybe if I just push through, what would my life look like? But then I'm like, that's just not how I operate, and that's okay. So, photography wise though, there are some projects that I'm excited to do, and I know working with film is like my favorite. There's client work that I love, but I love doing personal work with film because I can take my time. Where like client work requires a fast turnaround time, so I have to work digitally. But I think with film, it's something about the way that it looks, and then the process also, because it's film, I can't just shoot rapid fire. I have to like take my time. And I don't know, maybe some people don't, but I feel like taking my time and like really just not rushing. I don't like rushing. Candid moments. I want candids. There's like some posed, people like to pose up. That's fine. But I preferred like just photographing people in like when they're not paying attention. I like being the fly on the wall. And that's carried into like me as a professional photographer as well. Like when I shoot events, I don't do too much pose photos unless it's like a part of the shot list. I like photographing people just being themselves, because then they're not thinking about how they should look and how they should look on camera. And I get that, because when I'm in front of the camera, I'm kind of like, what am I looking like right now? Should I angle my chin like this or whatever? So when people are just in their essence, I think it's the most beautiful. I'm someone who can be very like, okay, how do I solve this problem? What is the solution? And maybe a little bit too much sometimes, but for me, it was like, okay, I had lived with people who had severe depression, and I've seen it in different ways. Like I've just seen a variety of ways that it can come out, and I just wanted to understand it in a different way. So the research that I did, it helped me make sense of some things. And the way I presented my thesis, I said that depression can be a catalyst for personal transformation. We have this inner voice that is communicating to us at all times. And for me, you have like the way I understand depression is like you have these warning signs, and at first they're whispers. So it's kind of like what I said earlier about the pivot, like obstacles asking if you're supposed to continue, push through, stretch and build, or strengthen yourself, or are you being asked to pivot? And sometimes the warning is to pivot, and we keep trying to push through, and it has to do with not being aligned with what it is you want for your life. And when we don't listen, it piles on. So it's layers of these whispers, and it becomes loud and loud. And the way that the way it presents itself is more aggressive. Things don't always happen on my time. It doesn't happen as quickly as I want, but sometimes I can help move myself forward if I get out of my own head or say things that are more empowering or challenging. Because sometimes I do like a challenge, and if I look at it as like, okay, what happens if we do it like this? If we step into like the uncertainty, because that's another thing, is like accepting uncertainty. That is that can be very challenging, but also very beautiful when you let it happen. I used to be in like a lot of youth programs as a participant, and I would watch the youth workers or facilitators, and some of them were just incredible, and then others I felt like they were just there for the paycheck. And in my head I was like, if I ever am in that position, I want the kids to know that I really care, and I want to put a lot of thought into the program and planning, and just be, whether it's a teacher or facilitator, be someone who they feel comfortable talking to, whether it's about the work or life. Now it's again teaching, so I started teaching again. Um, it, I could talk about that for days. Like I love working with kids in general, but then when it's art and like they get to express themselves and they learn a new thing and they're excited about it. And also like for me, I understand that it takes time to build a relationship with the kids. So I like programs that are over 5 weeks, and like you have your introductions, you teach them or like you show them what they're going to learn over the course of the program. And then you like slowly build, they get used to you. And then they're more comfortable sharing things. I found like when I started teaching again, even like a couple years ago, it just made me want to learn more about the art forms that I'm teaching, the things, even photography. Like I'm considered a professional photographer, but there's so much I could still learn. And then the more I know about photography or any other art form, the more I can teach, the more that I could share with them. So from when I started, I was like, this actually inspires me more to learn than when I was just doing it for myself, because I care so much about working with the kids and making sure that they get as much information as possible. I started researching more. So I thought that was interesting, but I can't say I'm really surprised, because this was something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I took it so seriously in my head that I was afraid to do it for a long time. Like I didn't think I was good enough for a long time. And now that I'm doing it, I'm just glad that I finally allowed myself to do it. I have this feeling. So if the goal, like it's like my dream life, right? I have a vague vision of what it looks like, but I know what it feels like. So for me, it's like warmth, it's peace, it's I know that it's also being or helping others. Like I know that I'm probably working in art, in some type of art form, but I know that it's also helping others. And the feelings again are warmth. I know that warmth is important for me. Um, and the the way that I get there are moments where I'm very detailed. I have a very detailed vision of what the next step will look like. And then life will like mash that up. And then I'm like, okay, I need to pivot, or okay, I need to rebuild, but like it's gonna look a little different than what I thought. And then I continue.